So, welcome everybody. I hope that you can hear me. It's 3 o'clock here in Västerbotten, Sweden. So it's time to start this session. So welcome both speakers on Zoom and to those of you that participate on YouTube. By initiative of the Murmansk region, we are here today for the second international online session, Barents Euro-Arctic region versus coronavirus. My name is Mikael Bergström, and I'm the chair of the Barents Regional Committee, and I will moderate this session. The Barents Regional Committee has followed these sessions closely, and we have discussed both the June meeting and today's meeting, and the Barents Regional Committee, we welcome the initiative by Murmansk to host these seminars. And now we're eager to hear about the development in the Barents regions since our last meeting on June the 10th. And it's great that we can meet in this way, and now when we are not able to meet in person. But some practical details before we start off. This session is recorded and live streamed, and it's interpreted to Russian and English. So please select the language at the bottom of the screen, otherwise you will not be heard by others. And you need your microphone at the bottom left of the screen. So please turn on the microphone only when you're speaking and mute otherwise. And as we have a simultaneous translation, please do not talk too fast and talk as clearly as possible. So with that, I give the floor to Governor Chibis. Please, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, dear friends, colleagues. I'm happy that our initiative to check our clocks to analyze the situation in the Barents region in the north, and so this initiative has taken root and it's developing. We are closely monitoring what's happening in the world, what's happening at our neighbors, and we believe that such an online format makes it possible for us to analyze the situation and make joint decisions that could be useful for the people living in our regions. I welcome all of you, and I would like to thank you very much that after the first session that we had in June, we had interaction and collaboration between colleagues on the working level, and it helped us analyze the experience and the practices that are undertaken by our colleagues. And I will emphasize again, it's important for us to learn from our colleagues, given that we live in similar climates and are in similar situations. I would like to thank you very much, and I hope that this session will become yet another useful step in combating the coronavirus and developing the economy in these challenging times. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor Chibis. And now over to the second welcome remarks from the Norwegian chair of the Committee of Senior Officials. I give the floor to Mrs. Jøril Johansen.
Thank you, Mikael. Governor Chibis, governors, dear Barents friends, thank you for the invitation and this initiative. It's always a pleasure to visit lovely Murmansk, even when it's a digital meeting. Norway, as chair of the Barents Euro-Arctic Council, has from the beginning underlined the importance of the role of the regions as the driving force of the Barents cooperation. And therefore, it's very good to see that you have this kind of exchange in experiences and best practices between the regions. We have very close cooperation with Västerbotten as chair, and we are happy to see that Murmansk and Västerbotten that you have a close and fruitful cooperation. COVID-19 has turned things around for all of us, and Norway as chair, suddenly we find ourselves conducting our chairmanship online. This is not what we had planned for. We see that we have to change things around. But you all know, as people of the North, we cannot give up. We have to adjust. We are used to challenges and changes, so we just have to keep going and strengthen the Barents cooperation, even though we have challenges in meeting each other, which is the core of the Barents cooperation. As I mentioned, we have a very close cooperation with Västerbotten, and together with the regional chair, Norway has initiated a high-level meeting on the 26th of October. The topic for this meeting is to discuss how we can further continue to strengthen and develop the Barents cooperation. And we look forward to hearing all your views at this meeting, and we also look forward to the conclusions from this meeting to be presented at the meeting on the 26th. So with these words, I thank you again, Governor Chibis and your staff and Västerbotten for this initiative, and I wish you a good meeting and fruitful discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Johansson. As you said, we're Västerbotten, the Norwegian share, we have a very good cooperation, and I really agree with that. This is not least true when it comes to this high-level meeting that you were talking about. Just want to stress that that meeting is about developing and strengthening the Barents cooperation. And from a regional point of view, Troms, Nordland, Lapland and Murmansk will be the voices of all the regions from their respective country. So today's session can also act as an important input for those regions to take to the high-level meeting. And we're very pleased that there are so many regions here present today from all over the Barents area. So now over to the second part of today's session. The current situation of the coronavirus spread, the specifics of the region's fight against coronavirus infection, efforts aimed at reducing the negative consequences of the pandemic for the region's economies, as well as existing measures to counter the infection, which have proven to be most effective, are issues that the speakers will touch upon now. Each speakers will comment upon these questions, and we will now hear from the participating speakers. And it's very important that you stick to the timing. You all have 4 minutes each to cover these relevant questions, and I will announce the speakers in turn. We will start with Murmansk, so I give the floor once again to Governor Chibis.
Thank you so much, dear friends. Of course, the key task and the key value that we were guided by since the very beginning of the pandemic in our country and in our region was fighting for the lives and health of our people. And we managed to overcome the peak and the infection rates that we had in the first 6 months of the year and the beginning of the summer. But at the same time, we also tested our healthcare system. It was a stress test for our healthcare system. And at the same time, it was important for us to keep the economy running because we know it's the small and medium-sized businesses, the service sector, hotels, restaurants, tourism sector that has suffered the most. And our task was to make decisions not to let them go bankrupt and give them new possibilities to develop after the pandemic was over. And we've taken a number of unprecedented steps. I highlighted some of those at our previous meeting in June, and I will now present some figures. for the 3 years, we basically zeroed out taxes for small businesses. We created such a taxation regime in the Murmansk region so that the small businesses, such as hotels, restaurants, tourism companies, could plan their development. At the same time, with the support of federal government, we managed to get unique conditions for the entire Arctic region. We now have the largest economic zone in the Arctic, and together with the privileges that we gave as a region, and in combination with federal privileges, and we see the investment growth despite the pandemic. It was more than 8% in the first 6 months of the year, but unfortunately throughout the country the investment fell, but we managed to work both with large businesses and small and medium-sized businesses to develop investment. And this is a global step. So despite the pandemic, we managed to obtain tax privileges from the federal government and managed to do so also on the regional level. The second thing was maintaining employment when small and medium-sized business had no work, and we understand that many of these people were out in the streets, and we started community service work where municipalities used the acute problems in terms of municipal improvement, cleaning, and so on. So they provided flexible working hours for this kind of work, and we had more than 8,000 people who used this opportunity over the course of summer and autumn when they had work, but their business was temporarily suspended, but they were able to participate in this community service work and get paid for it on an hourly basis. And we also focused on the teenagers, on school children, on students who, for various reasons, could not go on vacation. So they had a chance to get a job. And that has greatly helped with employment. If we understood that such a flexible temporary employment, also for those people who have a permanent employment, or for people who are not being employed maybe because their previous life experience was not good enough. So that has minimized the risks of crime, and we are going to continue running this mechanism in our area. And one more task that we had, given a large number of tourists, especially foreign tourists, and due to closed borders, we were actively working with the federal government to focus on developing domestic tourism and tourism within the region. And we were surprised to find out that many of our residents were not really quite active in travel in their own region. And also we introduced a cashback program. We refund a part of a tour if you travel to a neighboring region and you take a vacation in your own country. And this has helped to give an extra workload to the tourism facilities that were forced to stay idle. So we tried, and we can see that that despite the pandemic, and we didn't stop any large industry, any large enterprise, we managed to maintain the level of production in big industry, and at the same time support small and medium-sized businesses, giving them conditions for their future development. The situation now is as follows. In the summer, we had fewer cases, but we realized that when the autumn came, when people came back from vacations, when schools get back to work, the risk of increased infections were high, and we were very serious about preparing our healthcare sector for this new coronavirus peak. And today, despite all preparatory measures, we can see that there is a growth in infections, and the number of infected people is growing. We compared to the summer, and we see more serious cases compared to the summer. Together with our medical healthcare sector, we have prepared ourselves not to be in a critical situation. First of all schools, all educational establishments have been given technical means for air decontamination. We have tested all teachers that are engaged in the education process. We organize regular disinfection, and so far we have all schools open. We had forms, some classes that were closed, but all schools are open, so that children do not go into remote learning. But we understand the risks, so we have sent 30% of municipal and regional employees, government officials, to work remotely. And we also changed the start of the working hours so that we could have the start of the working day within 2 hours, so that we can have fewer people traveling to work at the same time. Just yesterday, we took a decision that we will limit the opening hours for entertainment facilities and public catering. We know that cafes and restaurants, they're open late into the night for discos and such, and that of course has an impact on the situation. And also since the very September, we started heating residential buildings and social institutions, and by that we saw a very sudden decrease in the number of infectious diseases, and it will help us also even out the risks of coronavirus infections and the limitations that we had. And because we limited large public events, and we are now monitoring this very closely, and we are very strict on business people, entrepreneurs who are violating those rules. Just recently, we started vaccinating our healthcare personnel. Yours truly has also participated in the testing of this new vaccine. I've tested it on myself, and we are now awaiting the arrival of this vaccine so that we could vaccinate the at-risk groups. So the decisions that we have made so far, we are not introducing any additional restrictions. We're trying to maintain to have our economy running, also small and medium-sized businesses, and we hope that this set of measures that we are now implementing and enforcing will help us to overcome this new peak of disease with fewer problems for people and for the small and for the businesses. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Governor Chibis. Before we continue, I just want to gently remind you that the time is limited, so please stick to your 4 minutes. Now we continue to Norway and to Troms, Finnmark. I give the floor to Mrs. Elisabeth Vik Aspaker.
Thank you, Mr. Bergström, Governor Chibis, dear fellow speakers. This is a report from Troms and Finnmark. No doubt that the COVID-19 causes disturbance to normal life. After a rather calm period during summer, the number of infected is slightly going up in Norway. Some places, the local healthcare personnel have their hands full to control new outbreaks. Even so, and due to a successful dugnad, the total numbers of infected are still low. Norwegians have really respected the national restrictions. We have traveled less. Most of us have been working from home. We have loyally fulfilled isolation and quarantine rules. Vulnerable groups were specially protected, and those who were infected were given immediate and effective help. Before summer, we had a period of lockdown in society, followed by a set of strict national regulations. Even if the regulations strongly affected our daily life, they were loyally followed by most people. After summer, the government changed its strategy. National restrictions were replaced by national recommendations as guidance to our municipalities. Local outbreaks are now met with local measures decided by politicians advised by their infection control doctors. The new strategy seemed to be effective. Restrictive measures are quickly implemented where outbreaks occur. In addition, testing capacity is increased with new test centers at airports, harbors, and on the Norwegian-Russian border in Kirkenes. In Norway so far, we have a total of 15,800 infected and 277 dead. The total numbers in Troms and Finnmark are about 400 infected. And still many municipalities in my county have had few or no infected persons at all. Others, like Tromsø municipality, have faced more severe incidents with a high number of infected at the same time. Some were hospitalized, but the majority have been isolated in designated hotels or in their homes, followed up by local doctors and nurses. The incidents in Tromsø have put a great strain on local doctors and nurses and led to lack of personnel. Infection tracing has been given high priority from the start here in Norway. Without the vaccine, this is very important to avoid further spreading of the virus. Even if digital tools are used, infection tracing is very time-consuming. Unfortunately, not all COVID-19 positive have symptoms. Going to school or work not knowing if you are infected may lead to high numbers of people in quarantine for 10 days. Easy access and quick tests will hopefully avoid too many in quarantine in the future. Quarantine consequences in hospitals, in the local healthcare, and in schools have been a sudden shortage of key personnel. In this case, we encourage our municipalities to be good neighbors and help each other. And as Mr. Chibis mentioned, all schools so far has been open here in Troms and Finnmark. And I also have to admit that there is a discussion going on whether if all costs in the municipalities concerning COVID-19 will be covered. And that is a promise from the Norwegian government that they will have the extra costs covered. So to sum up, the pandemic situation in Troms and Finnmark is quite stable. Local politicians have the responsibility now to respond to new outbreaks and decide what measures to be taken. And at last, during the pandemic, our municipalities have improved their skills and capacity to fight the virus. Thank you, Mr. Bergström.
Thank you, Mrs. Vikasbacker. Now over to Northern Ostrobothnia in Finland. I give the floor to Regional Mayor Pauli Harju.
Thank you, Chair. May I have my presentation to see that? I have a little report of the current situation with the coronavirus. Is it possible to get my slideshow on? I sent it. Is it somewhere?
Please, Murmansk, can you put up the slideshow?
I have a report of the current situation, and I hope that my colleagues in Finland, they tell more about the activities to fight against these economic crisis and because most of the activities, they are national ones, and then that's why I want to tell you something about what's happening in Finland at the moment. In our region, last 14 days, we have number of cases only 43, and comparing the examples in Vaasa region and Helsinki, they are much more bigger. Vaasa, for example, more than 500, and in Helsinki, 1,000, almost 300. But in the same times, the increase, it's increasing, the numbers of the cases are increasing quite rapidly, 3 times more than after 14 days. And there's quite good maps on the Finland, and I can show you that in our areas in the middle of the Finland, the cases are much less than in Helsinki area or even in the Lapland. And in our region, we have region it's having regular level condition. It's a new way to say where we are now. We are not spreading but something is happening. We know that. In the city of Oulu, there's more cases than in the region, and nationally we have more cases than presenting 2 weeks. And at the moment, we have recommendations to keep safe distance, good hand wash hygiene, and some importance of needing and coaching habits or behavior, and recommendations of wearing face mask in public transportation. Only this kind of recommendations that we have at the moment. And in the spring of last spring, the Finnish government decided a state of emergency. We shut schools, teaching online, removed working, began border traffic controls, banned gatherings of more than 10 people, and shut down all restaurants in whole Finland. And at the moment, we use different kind of tools. We have a Communicable Disease Act. It's old law, and that law means that regional and municipal level, we have all these coordination and steering role, and all this power which we are using to eliminate this virus. New restrictions are decided in the national level, such as restriction on the border traffic and opening hours of restaurants. These are the national restrictions at the moment. And measures are being taken to fight the pandemic. Now we are increasing testing and encourage people to have a low threshold to take a test. We trace infection chains. Most of the sources of infections are known in our regions, not anymore in Helsinki area. We isolate infected and treat patients. And recommendation to work out of the working place, it's using at the moment more than 65% of the workers, they are working out of their working places at the moment. And this is to forbid public events and public gatherings of more than 50% people are this kind of restrictions we have at the moment. And what about the economy? This virus caused us a lot of unemployment. Before that, our unemployment rate was about 10%. And after May, it was 18%. And now it's reducing about 15 or 13%. It's coming a normal one. But no, most of the activities which we have they are national programs to our firms, and maybe Pentti will tell more about this kind of activities, how much money we have used to the companies and to prevent collapses and consequences of the shutdowns. This kind of, I will send you my presentation. There's a lot of knowledge about the Finnish situation, and you can see how our areas are quite different at the moment, and maybe the consequences, the most dramatic consequences are in the Helsinki area because of the tourism and in the Lapland also. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harju. Now over to Sweden and Västerbotten. I give the floor to Mr. Lars Lustig, Vice Governor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bergström. Dear governors, dear ministers, dear majors, dear friends. Since our last meeting in mid-June, we have had a clear downward trend throughout Sweden in terms of the spread of infection, the burden on the healthcare system, and the number of deaths. Since the beginning of September, however, we see that the spread of infection is increasing again in the whole country. But we also see some differences compared to the situation earlier this year. One such difference is that it's now mainly people between the ages of 20 and 40 who are infected. Another, that we do not yet have any clear increased burden in healthcare, even though there are strong reasons to follow this development very closely. The increase in number of COVID cases must, of course, also be considered in the light of the fact that we have had extensive test operations throughout the whole country since a couple of months. What we've mainly been seeing for the last months are local outbreaks of infection, so-called cluster outbreaks, which usually occur in connection with student activities, sports, or in certain workplaces. The number of cases in elderly nursing homes has also increased, but remains at a relatively low level compared with the situation this spring. In Sweden, up till now, we have 5,899 dead in total with confirmed COVID-19. But in Västerbotten, only 31 people have died. And in our neighbor county Norrbotten, 85 people have died. Of the deceased in Sweden, half are in the group 85 years and older. In Sweden, we have not had any excess mortality at all this year compared to a normal year, except for the group 85 years and older. But we also see a number of secondary effects of the pandemic. For example, there are many cancelled surgical operations that need to be taken care of now. There are also effects on mental illness that seem to be results of the pandemic. However, one of the most obvious secondary effects of the pandemic is the effect on the labor market and on the economy. The Swedish gross domestic product fell dramatically during the second quarter of this year as a result of the pandemic. During the third quarter, however, there was a sharp upward rebound. The government's support have been helpful to both companies and households. Increased demand from outside world and supply chains that are functioning again have contributed to export also catching up much of the previous decline. In the labor market, however, the turnaround will take some time. Unemployment continues to grow and ends up at almost 10% in the fourth quarter this year. However, economic policy continues to support a recovery next year, but according to experts, it will be 2023 before the recession is over. But Västerbotten is, after all, one of the least affected counties in Sweden. We currently have no people in need of hospital care, and our most recent death in COVID-19 occurred almost 4 months ago on June the 23rd. We work in full accordance with the national councils and recommendations to reduce the spread of infections, such as stay home if you have symptoms, be careful with hand hygiene, keep a physical distance from other people, avoid traveling through rush hours, and work home if it's possible. During the spring and summer, we also received several assignments from the government in order to reduce the spread of infection. Some examples of these are: 1. Provide regional snapshots weekly. 2. Coordinate access to protective equipment and other medical supplies. 3. Support the municipalities regarding infection control. And 4. Follow compliance with recommendations and advice for domestic travel. I can also inform you that Umeå University, at the start of the academic semester, conducted a mass test among students and staff. More than 10,000 people were tested, but only 7 cases of COVID infection were detected. Finally, we look forward of hosting the next Barents Regional Council meeting later this year or in the beginning of the next. It will obviously be held online, and we think that it will be a good arena for continuing the discussion of today, as almost all of us also take part in those meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lustig. Now over to Nenets and Acting Governor, Mr. Andrey Blashinsky. The floor is yours.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Unfortunately, Mr. Blashinsky was not able to participate in this meeting, and I'm the acting head of healthcare department of the Nenets Autonomous Okrug. As of today, we have 35 beds dedicated to COVID patients. 30 of them have oxygen supply and 5 have ventilators. Yeah, we have a sufficient number of medical personnel. Currently, there is no need for organizing any extra beds. We have also, our medical establishments have a sufficient number of medical workers who have been trained to provide medical assistance to patients with COVID. We have a minimum supply of personal protective equipment and medication. We have also obtained funding for fighting the COVID pandemic. We have funding from the regional budget and from federal budget. We also have regional restrictions that are updated based on the situation currently. A decision has been made to introduce a mandatory 2-week self-isolation for all those arriving to the region from other regions. We had this regime from early May to the 20th of September, and self-isolation has proven to be an efficient and effective measure. And self-isolation can be waived if an arriving person has a negative coronavirus test. We are also have a mandatory face mask wearing in public spaces. And so there is administrative responsibility for violating these regulations. And in the nearest session of the crisis response center, we're planning to recommend to employers to consider moving 30% of their workforce to distance working from 15th of October to 15th of November. Currently, we have 29 people under observation. 26 are treated at home, and 3 patients are at the regional hospital with pneumonia, and their condition is considered to be moderately severe. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Neanets. And now over to Norway, to Nordland, and Mr. Thomas Norvoll. The floor is yours.
Thank you, dear friends and colleagues of the Barents Cooperation. Dear Andrey Chibis, thank you for taking the initiative for this following up meeting regarding the COVID-19 situation in the Barents region. The strong foundation of the Barents Cooperation makes the Barents region more resilient in crises like this. I am glad that the relations that we have built over years of cooperation and dialogue continues in good way, also in more difficult times like these. In many ways, we are back to more normal everyday life in Norway, although we see an alarmingly rise, especially the south of Norway, in the number of affected these days. Taking care of our inhabitants and keeping businesses alive, that is our most important tasks. We must be responsible and patient. The coronavirus is something to worry about, although a certain American president claims otherwise. In Nordland, the situation has not changed significantly since our last meeting in June. We are still the county with the fewest number of infected in Norway. Still, the situation is serious and we are working effectively on keeping the numbers low, as well as taking the appropriate measures to support the many sectors that struggle in this time. The marine industry and other sectors that are depending on logistics for export are facing severe challenges. One concrete example is Hurtigruten, our coastal express service. As a direct result of the COVID-19 situation, only 2 out of 11 ships are now operating. For many municipalities along the coast, this is the main transportation option. Important jobs will disappear as a result, and there will also be a significant higher number of semi-trailers on the roads, which raises other concerns. Especially the sectors of culture and tourism has a hard time in this situation. Both we and the national authorities are working on finding good solutions to help these sectors to survive. People-to-people cooperation, culture and tourism should be further developed when Bodø and Nordland is becoming European Capital of Culture in 2024. Bodø 2024 will be a great opportunity to develop our region and make not only Nordland, but the whole Barents region and the Arctic more attractive. And I welcome you to join us in common projects toward years 2024. In our last meeting in June, I talked about the Arctic resource paradox, where huge economic activity in the north produces jobs in the south, and that we, as a joint Barents region, should address this issue together. The Barents Regional Council will be the right place to further discuss joint measures and tools to address this Arctic resource paradox. I can say that we in Nordland are currently looking into ways to start this work, and I'm looking forward to the next meeting in the Barents Regional Council, where I hope we can discuss this issue further. I wish all of you the best of luck in handling the pandemic, and I hope that we can work together also on this issue. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Norvall. The Arctic resource paradox definitely is something that we need to discuss on our coming meeting in the Barents Regional Council. So we will take that on board on the agenda. Thank you very much. Now over to Finland and Lapland and Mrs. Päivi Ekdahl, Development Director of Regional Council of Lapland. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On behalf of Regional Council of Lapland, I thank the organizers for keeping this important concern high on the joint agenda. Also, we want to highlight that it's very important to organize the network meetings in cooperation with the chairman regions. What comes to COVID effects to Lapland, Mr. Pauli Harju already referred to the severe consequences to our tourism, and that is, of course, very serious situation. But my comments here, they concern mostly the implementation of Arctic program and the consequences to our joint projects. In the administration of the projects and administration of the program, it can be done via online meetings perfectly. Also, trainings and meetings with the EC, the European Commission, are implemented via online, and no problems in those. It's already everyday work. But several projects, they have faced difficulties with getting, for example, in getting the auditing in time, because the order for remote work, and it's resulting to extension of the reporting periods. Several conferences have been cancelled, resulting in difficulties in information spreading. Many projects report that they are saving a lot of money, which is our concern, of course, because that money that is not used in the projects, it's going away from our regions. The European Commission implementation regulation has been modified in order to soften the consequences of the COVID-19. Arctic has taken into use the possibility to continue project implementation period. Several projects have already applied continuation, and they are trying to reach their goals with the extra time. A wide COVID-19 impact questionnaire has just been sent to the lead partners and partners, and purpose of the questionnaire is to collect information about the amount of postponed activities and about the resilience of the projects. For example, how they have been able to adjust to the situation. Also, information about the needs for budget changes, extension of the project time, estimation of the project results, and so forth are to be collected. The results shall be used in forecasting the program implementation and also in preparation of the new program. Some very concrete examples from the ongoing projects. Project Arctic Coast bioremediation projects, the Russian partner can't deliver the samples that are taken from the coast of the Barents Sea to be analyzed by Syke in Helsinki. Other activities of the project, they are continuing as planned. The bridge project has taken its activities to online format. The student teams work via internet and solve development challenges of the SMEs from Petrozavodsk. Implementation via online works perfectly, even though the touch to the businesses remain thinner in virtual surroundings. Very severe problems have been faced in the project reindeer meat quality high, which in practice has stopped. The Finnish lead partner can't visit the Russian slaughterhouses for preparation of the needs survey. trainings of meat handling for Russians cannot be implemented as they can't enter Finland. Midterm payment of the project has just been done. A very acute situation needs to be discussed with the lead partner. And one possibility is a temporary suspension of the project in order to save the reserved financing for a time where the activities can be continued. Then about the large infrastructure projects, of course, it's a happy situation that in these projects, the investments and the construction is done by the people and the workforce of the respective country. So the large infrastructure projects are continuing as planned and no severe delays in those. The LIP projects are planning to organize a joint online information session on 20th of October. So with these consequences, of course, they continue when this situation, if this situation is going on for a long time, but we of course hope that we can react on time in order to save the implementation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Ekdahl. Now over to Arkhangelsk region from the Ministry of Economic Development. Acting Minister, Mr. Alexander Bille, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues. I would like to tell you about the situation in the Arkhangelsk region. This March, in the territory of Arkhangelsk region, the enhanced preparedness regime was introduced. As of today, 16,000 cases of infection, and one day, 200 cases, and over 10,000 people have recovered. That's why the measures for priority measures have been developed for the region and for the regional entrepreneurship, including more than 40 proposals on the situation. Among the first measures of support were reliefs in taxation, prolongation of reporting period for the businesses that found themselves in difficult situations. In our region, the tax rate was reduced. After that, we reduced taxation for entrepreneurs working on patent-based taxation. Also, the territory of Arkhangelsk region introduced special taxation regime, professional income tax. As of today, as of 8th of October, in the region, we have registered nearly 2,400 self-employed people. At the same time, new measures for entrepreneurs support were introduced. Reduction of the rent payment down to 1 ruble if you rent land from Arkhangelsk region. The ministry have given recommendations to municipalities for postponement of deadlines for land tax. Also, among the priority measures to support business, there is more accessible loans and credits under the regional microcredit company Развитие, prolongation of the relief period, and also new anti-crisis program to offer 1% rate loans, and 42 loans have already been issued for more than 20 million rubles. Another refunding program with the 6% rate were introduced for the regional representatives of small and medium businesses. There is an opportunity to receive subsidies for disinfection and prevention measures. For this, the Agency of Regional Development has opened a call of applications for such support. Another popular measure is federal subsidizing of small and medium businesses. For April and May, in amounts of one minimal wage for one employee. We have paid in these salaries 625 million rubles beginning from April-May. Also, to compensate the costs for COVID prevention are provided for those who were on the special list of industries and branches that, on the opinion of the government, need such support. More than 3,500 entrepreneurs applied for this support. This is all from me. Thank you, and I wish you all good luck.
Thank you very much from Arkhangelsk, and now over to Finland. I give the floor to Mr. Pentti Malinen, Regional Mayor from Kainuu.
Thank you. Kainuu is one of the least affected areas in Finland, so that I have more to say about the social economic consequences and the recovery and resilience measures that are taken or are planned in the future. So I can send you a slides on and information that by email. But to comment a little bit, Pauli Harju, in Finland we have the first phase of corona during the spring 2 months, and the highest peak was during the beginning of May. The summertime was very quiet, and we had a good time, but the second wave of corona has now started in September. But there is very striking differences in between the effects in Finland between the regions. In the first phase, Finland had very national restrictions, but during the summer, Finland changed the strategy, so-called hybrid strategy. That means that we take more local and more targeted measures where the risk of virus is the highest. So that at the moment, Finland the regions are divided into 3 categories: the basic level, then the acceleration phase. We have 4 regions at the moment in that phase, and 1 region in the diffusion phase that is the highest. So that the higher the risk decrease, the more restrictions the regions themselves can apply. Kainuu has no infections during the last 2 weeks, but when I look Kainuu as a region, it's also very exceptional because the consequences measured with the unemployment is very good in our region. Our unemployment rate is now come back to almost the same level as before the corona crisis. And it's not only due to the effective measures. The measures that have been taken in Kainuu is that we have very strict, very fast reactions when there's a corona affections in some places, so that there will be very good communication on the local level and very much testing. In Kainuu, we are testing now to 1,200 people per week, so about 2% of our population. That is one explanation, but the good unemployment rate is due to our good economic development during 5 years that has been driven especially on the mining sector. And the mining sector and our biggest companies have not been affected of this coronavirus during this year. That explains our good situation. Otherwise, we have suffered like other regions, especially the tourism is in a very strange situation. We have the closed border between Russia and Finland. and what is the most radical change? We have no flight connections from the beginning of March until now, so that there's no international possibilities, international tourism, and even to travel to Helsinki, we need at least 6 or 7 hours by car or train. That will be a very risky situation because we cannot have very effective ways how to cope with this situation. But I think it's very difficult and different from your situation. Yes, what I will then say, of course, these national measures have been taken during the spring to not more tax-based, but support and subsidy-based measures towards businesses in very different ways. But in the future, we are in the phase that we are planning to many kind of recovery plans. It starts from EU level when they made a very strong next generation EU budget that will be allocated to the member states. And also at the moment, all the Finnish regions are making their own recovery plans. Kainuu made it recovery plan accepted 2 days ago. And there are also planning of national recovery and resilience programs that are needed in the future to allocate EU and national funding for two purposes. The one purpose is the short-term crisis actions and the recovery measures. And the more long-term view is to create new growth, because there are also consequences that are positive for growth. For example, digitalization and some green growth developments. I think I will stop now, and thank you for organizing this seminar, and see you next time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Maninen. Now over to Russia and Komi Republic from the Ministry of Culture, Tourism and Archives. I give the floor to Minister Sergei Yemelyanov. Please, the floor is yours.
Добрый день, уважаемые коллеги, уважаемый Андрей Владимирович.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues, dear Andrey Vladimirovich. I would like to report about the measures that our region, the Republic of Komi, is taking to support the enterprises and organizations in this COVID situation. The most affected spheres and sectors in our republic, just like in other regions of our country in the world, are transport, hotels, catering, tourism, education, childcare, culture, sports, and a few others. We provide consulting support. There are hotlines for entrepreneurs, online training and consulting. Also, updated information is provided on the new support measures and on the effective support measures for small and medium enterprises. Also, distant learning is offered in the region. Today, there is moratorium until the 1st October 2020, moratorium for inspections from the controlling authorities unless there is a risk for life and the health of our people. Today, the following support is accessible in loan area: preferential microloans, restructuring of the major loans, postponement of the deadlines, and opportunity to use microloans for salaries and taxation, special credit product for 1%. Today, there is also property support provided by the government and the Republic in particular the Department of the Property Relations and Land, for the period beginning from the 1st of March and until the enhanced preparedness regime in the territory of the Komi Republic, rent is not payable under rent agreements by small and medium enterprises in the state-owned facilities. Today, the rent is reduced down to 50% under the state owners and small and medium businesses relations, if their activities are not included in the list of the most affected sectors. Rent payments can be put off or paid in installments, and also penalty under rent agreements is not charged. Also, there are preferential or beneficial measures for 2020. Taxation is reduced down to 1%, and for 2021, 2% taxation on property organizations and immovable property, where the taxation base is interpreted as the cadastre property of the organizations as small and medium enterprises. Also, taxation has been reduced for companies working under the simplified taxation system. The taxation will be reduced down to by 50% from 6 to 3% of the income, and for the companies from 15 to 7.5%. Generally, we continue our efforts, and new measures of support are being targeted at the whole region or at specific sectors, and we hope for soon recovery from this crisis situation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jemilainov. Now over to Troms Finnmark and the Deputy Chair, Mr. Terje Jensen-Bech.
Good afternoon, Barents friends. First of all, I would like to join the others and thank Governor Andrey Chibis following up the initiative to provide a forum to discuss COVID-19 among the region in the Barents Cooperation. With the exception of the largest city, Troms and Finnmark has been blessed with very few cases of COVID-19, with only single digits figures to show for. Traveling by air continues to be crucial for us in northern Norway. In addition, our county is very much dependent upon our neighbors when it comes to transport of goods to the market. Thousands of people, youth and adults, have overnight lost their meeting ground for culture, sports, and in general, people-to-people contact. I would like to underline this because, and I know I'm kicking in open doors, Barents is a very sparsely populated area. The prerequisites for development have suffered a blow back as we no longer meet. While we do not yet know the full extent of the economic impact, figures from the tourism industry has provided us with a rather bleak picture. Firstly, the ongoing crisis has demonstrated that the tourism industry is very vulnerable to unforeseen events and changes on a global level. Northern Norway is characterized by distances, and the infrastructure prevent visitors from reaching businesses that are located far to the north. Second, several businesses have built up their companies around a single market and are in addition dependent on third parties. The Norwegian market does not provide sufficient volume to secure the companies. The risk of bankruptcy is high for many companies, and there is a great fear that the autumn will result in a further sharp fall in demand. That gives us a high number when it comes to proportion of temporary layoffs, and more redundancies are being reported. This again influenced the situations for young apprentices that are not able to find internship. Troms and Finnmark, as a fish exporting county, suffers as restaurants in Europe are closed. While we see an increase in spending within retail, home and domestic travel, this is by far not enough to balance or out the negative effect. Troms and Finnmark County has therefore taken the following step. Additionally, 40 million Norwegian kroners for business development in Troms and Finnmark, reduced requirement for loans and grant recipients in industry, no demand for return of money for culture and sport events that have been cancelled due to COVID-19, measure to improve the apprentices' situation by providing apprenticeships, and 74.4 million Norwegian kroners has been allocated to municipal businesses funds in the county following an extraordinary grant from national authorities. Dear all, this has been a rather gloomy presentation. Let me therefore end on a more positive note. Yes, people-to-people cooperation is suffering, but I'm also very glad to see the creativeness among people trying to find new ways for cooperation. In the EU program Arctic, we have so far, knock on the wood, noticed very few applications for postponements. I am also very glad that we have this platform to discuss COVID-19. This is useful. We need to learn from each other. I am also a strong supporter of the Barents cooperation. We look very much forward to the next meeting in the Barents Regional Council so that we all can discuss a wider range of Barents issues, such as possible input to the EU Arctic policy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jansenbeck, for your report from Troms Finnmark. We are also looking forward to the next Barents Regional Council meeting, and I'm looking forward to meeting you. Now over to Finland and North Karelia. Please, Mr. Risto Putiainen, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. And from North Karelia and Joensuu. So I was not able to take part last time in June of these meetings, but now it's possible, and thank you for the opportunity to be part of it and also to hear what is your affections in different parts of the Barents region. So I would like to also thank you the Pauli Harju and Päivi Ekdahl and Pentti Malinen of the telling of the Finnish situation. I mainly tell a little bit of what is the situation in my region in North Karelia. As Pentti Malinen told about the Finnish system, so I think North Karelia, we are at the moment at the basic level. This means that totally we have had the cases in our regions just 105, but it has been increased now during the couple of weeks. But still, we are calling at the regional incidence number. What is the numbers of in 2 weeks of 100,000 inhabitants? It's around 23 at the moment in North Karelia region. We have had since the March this year the closed border with the Republic of Karelia, the Niirala border crossing point, but it's for the citizens, but in the business area it has been open. As Pentti Malinen told, we have also had difficulties in the flight connections, but now it's coming back again, and it's very crucial for our businesses and especially for the export-oriented businesses. So we have followed also the business turnover, and the first half of the year it has been come down, decreased in North Karelia a little more than 5%. We have to remember that in the first months of this year it has been quite good situation, but after March has been come down. So it's around 5.3%. In business sector, this has been meant almost 13% first part of the year. But during the summertime, as was told, for example, in Kainuu region, so we have had been quite a stable situation, and now it's the cases has been growing like in other parts of the Finland now in September, October area. Thus, we have some problems in the business sector, and also in our region, the unemployment rate has been grown like not on Ostrobothnia, but in some business areas there have been good possibilities. I mean, the information social ICT technology and also the forest-based bioeconomy, some parts of the tourism also, which is reflecting the domestic tourism has been increased during the summertime. But we are looking forward to what is happening now in the before the end of this year and the beginning of the next year. So Pentti Malinen told about these national subsidies, but also the national regional recovery and resilience funds. We have also done it together with the actors, the Chamber of Commerce, entrepreneurial associations, with the municipalities and different actors. So and also the university, polytechnics and the University of Applied Sciences and so on. So it's very important to see the situation, but also to have the plans for the future. And we have also to have the possibility to use the national recovery funding, what Pentti Malinen told about, and now we are planning of the European Union recovery and resilience funding. So when in the middle of March, when it started this COVID and it reflected to our region, so we had the biathlon World Cup in Kontiolahti, and then we had the just in the middle of March the competition, but with no audience, and we are going to have it now in the end of November, in the beginning of December. Next one, the two World Cups in my region, and we'll see if it's going to be audience or not. So we are very interesting. Autumn is going to be ahead us. So thank you once again for the opportunity to have this discussion of the situation in different part of the Barents region, and this is mainly of the North Karelian case, and so far thus it's growing, but it's still quite a low rate of cases in my region. Thank you.
Thank you for that report, Mr. Putiainen, and I'm looking forward of watching the biathlon on television later this year. And now over to Västerbotten's sister county, Karelia, Russia. I give the floor to Mr. Oleg Yermolayev, Minister from the Minister of Economic Development of Industry of the Republic of Karelia. Please, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues. The problems because of coronavirus, I assume they're similar. I've listened attentively to all the speakers. As of today, we are seeing an incremental increase in the number of infected in the region, but the incidence rate, if you compare to other Russian regions, is not very high. We are also following up on the number of infected on a daily basis, on the number of people who have recovered. We have a total of more than 500 beds that are ready for COVID patients. 112 of them have ventilators, and 40% of beds are now vacant. 60% are occupied. So we have patients that are connected to ventilators. We are also purchasing additional computer tomographers. We have a sufficient supply, a stock of personal protective equipment, and it means that our healthcare sector is ready for development of the situation, also for the negative development of the pandemic. Today we heard a lot about the status of the economy in the presentations, and we took very important decisions about introducing or not introducing restrictions. I think we made very balanced decisions that proved to be efficient. If we look at the 8 months of this year, we see in growth in industrial output of 120%. We are not seeing any decrease in investment. We see that some small and medium-sized businesses have been affected, but as of the 1st of September, the retail sector has fully recovered. We are seeing a recovery in the service sector, and much of it is thanks to the support measures that were introduced on the federal and regional levels. I will not dwell upon them right now because we all have different taxation legislation. I'll just say that we introduced comprehensive taxation preferences, especially for small and medium-sized businesses in affected spheres. We allocated money for payment of salaries in the companies that had to stop their operation, but had to pay salaries to their employees. This was a federal measure, but we increased it with money from the regional budget. The Republic of Karelia has also received the first batch of Sputnik V vaccine, and we already started the vaccination, primarily among healthcare personnel. And we also are running a large information campaign targeting both the businesses and the general public, where people can ask questions, how people can travel outside the Russian Federation, how can Russian citizens return to the country, what kind of support measures are available in the economic sphere. We have a professional team that provides that information to the residents of Karelia. And I would also like to thank the organizers of this meeting. This has been very useful. I heard a lot of interesting information today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yermolayev. Now over to the Norwegian Barents Secretariat and the head of the Secretariat, Mr. Lars Georg Fordal.
Thank you, Mikael. So, dear friends and colleagues, and thank you to Murmansk Oblast and Governor Chibis for this initiative. The corona situation is, of course, very serious, and our doctors are fighting the best they can. We cannot say how long this pandemic will last, but what we unfortunately know is that after this is finished, there will be a lot of economical challenges. We need jobs, and people in the Barents region need, maybe more than ever, will we need innovation and development. And maybe the biggest question might be, how can we create activity and business opportunities again? And one traditional solution, that would be to build infrastructure, have big projects, get investments, but this might not be so easy. And one alternative could be to focus more on what we already have. I will mention one example that is very visible between Norway and Russia. We have the Norwegian-Russian border. I believe this could be actually used more as a resource for the region. For example, it will be electronic visas to Russia from next year. Then I now talk about when we have the corona under control. So we know that the paper borders are getting smaller. It will be easier to cross the border, not only for people living here, but also for foreigners and for potential tourists. And I believe one of the steps we could take is to make transport across the border more easy. And what we see in Norway is that about 60% of our cars, they are now electric. They don't need money to use that on fuel, for example. And in both Kirkenes and Zapolyarny, we have electric car chargers. So we have these chargers, and we also have minibuses are available that go on power. And we see a clear possibility for setting up shuttle buses between Kirkenes, Nikel, and Zapolyarny. This is a regional project. It could be quite small, but what it does, it opens up the border region for more activity that could be developed and give business opportunities. So this is one of several projects we are working with at the moment to make plans, to have meetings with organizations that are interested to develop this. And we are happy to see several partners that we are going to meet to try to develop this further. So we believe that focus on innovation and development of what we can do in the region after Corona to get businesses and to make jobs, that is very important. And this has never been as important, I believe. So I wanted to mention this project that we are working with at the moment, and I suggest that the Barents Euro-Arctic Council, the Regional Council, and all the established regional working groups in the Barents region, I believe it would be a huge benefit to put innovation and development and creation of jobs in the post-Corona Barents region on the plans for the coming years. So with this, I say thank you very much, and thank you for this very good and useful meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fordal, and we definitely will take that on board in our coming meetings. And now we reach the third and the final part of the seminar. I give the floor to Governor Chibis for some final remarks.
Dear friends, first of all, I would like to thank everyone for a very interesting conversation. This has a very practical value because the experience and the measures that are taken in the regions of the Barents region is very useful for all of us. And I completely agree with Mr. Fordal that we should not only thinking about the present day measures, not only about how we are fighting the coronavirus and how we are supporting the economy, but this additional arena that have brought us together, it also gives us the possibility to discuss new approaches and innovations, because coronavirus has definitely given an impetus to innovative development in all countries, in all regions. So therefore, I have a proposal. Now, I have heard about this electric shuttle bus between Nikel and Kirkenes, and I can tell you right away that we support this initiative, and we also focus on the development of electric transport in the Murmansk region. We have introduced a draft law to the regional parliament on zeroing the tax on electric vehicle owners. So the launch of this shuttle bus would be the right move, both in terms of environmental protection, and also it will be an additional link between our two countries and between our regions to make our economic and neighborly relations more active. I fully support that, and we are ready to discuss it intersessionally. We think that's a very right approach. I really hope that when we discuss the pandemic, we will be able to find additional projects for cooperation between the regions in order to support the economy, in order to support the tourism, those sectors that have been affected by the coronavirus. And I have a proposal. Last time we agreed to create a working group, and I would like to thank you very much for the fact that this working group is operational. We have a real communication and collaboration. Maybe we should establish a portal, a website, maybe at the website of Barents Secretariat that would highlight our joint activities so that we could see that measures that are implemented to fight the pandemic. And on the other hand, we should see the innovations that are prompted by the pandemic. For example, thanks to the pandemic, we managed to introduce an online health monitoring application at the potentially the largest construction site in the Arctic. So each region, each company, so we could present the information from our regions on this website. So if you don't mind, that we should establish such a tab on the Barents Cooperation portal so that our people, our experts could see it online and exchange information and make decisions in both combating the pandemic and developing the economy. And it is my great pleasure to invite all of you to the session that will take place online this year, and it will be dedicated to the cooperation in the Arctic. It will be our third session. This is where we discuss all our important issues, and we hope that this distance or remote format will not prevent us from finding new possibilities for friendly relations and possibilities for cooperation between our regions and countries. And once again, I would like to thank you very much for this meeting that will help me personally in making decisions in addressing the pandemic. In our federal legislation, the governors have all necessary authority to make decisions concerning fighting the pandemic and supporting the regional economies. Thank you very much for your support, and thank you for our joint work.
Thank you very much, Governor Chibis. It's truly been interesting reports that we got from all the regions. Maybe it was the nice view of the fjord in the background from Nordland that makes me especially remember Thomas Norvold's speech when he talked about the strong foundation of the Barents cooperation makes the Barents region more resilient in crises like this. And I'm glad that the relations that we have built over the years of cooperation and dialogue continues in a good way. Also in a more difficult times like this, end of quote. And this, I think, truly wraps up today. And I finalize today's session by thanking all the participants of the meeting and the host, Murmansk, for organizing it. Now, I see that Mr. Chibis wants to say something. The floor is yours.
I think I will express everyone's opinion. We thanking you for excellent moderation. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chibis. So with that, we declare the conference ended. Thank you, everyone. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Спасибо.
You.